Hi, everybody. This is Holland Martin. Thanks for joining me today on the Never Die podcast. And today I have former Marion High School athletic director, Jamy Bechler. Jamy, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, I'm glad to be here, Holland. I appreciate what you're doing, and thanks for having me.
Yes. So let's start in your Success is a Choice podcast. Let's talk about that and some of the topics and guests that you've had on.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. We've been doing it for 4 years now. So a little bit after I left Marion, we started the podcast, and that was something I knew I wanted to do. I wanted to interview people that I was interested in and kind of wanted to pick their brain. You know, I wanted to learn some of their tips and their strategies and secrets to being successful and some of the things that they had screwed up on. You know, maybe I could learn from some of their mistakes.
Yes.
And so we've interviewed a lot of people. And it's all across the board. So it's not just athletics. We've interviewed, entertainers, poker players, athletes, coaches, Shark Tank people, business people, authors. So all across the board. And it's been really fun getting to, as you know, doing this show, it's fun to be able to ask the questions you want to hear. And I love listening to podcasts. So it's great to be able to be the one asking the questions that I'm interested in.
Yes. I love watching a lot of podcasts myself and getting a question from here, an idea from here, not do that, maybe do that. So I definitely like that. Now, you are a John Maxwell certified leadership coach. Go into a little bit of that and what that entails.
I have always been a big John Maxwell fan. I mean, he's written over 100 books. It seems like he's writing, one every week. It seems like, I know that's an exaggeration, but he's always churning out great stuff. And as a young coach, I got introduced to him, and I just loved his stuff. And a lot of my teams would do his book studies. We would give the books to our players. And that was always something that was really important to me, was leadership as a coach. And so we were always doing his stuff. And when I had the opportunity to get trained by he and his teaching staff, I jumped at it. And it was while I was in my last go around as a coach, was when I was introduced to the opportunity. But then at that time, I wasn't able to do it. And then some things broke my way when I was at Marion. I had some extra, there was some, an opportunity for me to go ahead and do some of the training and get certified while I was at Marion.
Yes.
And the thought was that it would help me as an athletic director. It would help me as a leader to then pour into other people as well. Because at Marion, we started that student athlete leadership advisory group. And so this was a way to help me help them a little bit better. I'd never thought that being a professional speaker was something that someone like me could do. It was something that, big time famous people, they're the ones that are public speakers. And so I never thought until I went through that certification that, everyday average Joes can be public speakers too, if they have something to say.
I can do this and I can affect change in a positive way. And that goes into leadership, being a leadership trainer. Do you find that some businesses, occupations are harder to teach leadership skills to than others?
I think it's hard for everybody because I kind of take the approach of leadership that it's very servant minded. It's very giving. We're trying to make things better for as many people as possible. We're trying to make the situation better. And I'm using my power as a leader to make a change, to make a difference. But a lot of people look at leadership as the power benefits me. I'm going to use this power to get what I want and to get my way. And unfortunately, we see that in politics. We see that we do see that in some coaches sometimes, some athletic directors, some bosses that we might have, they let that power go to their head. And I don't think that that's what leadership is about. And so I do think it's tough at any level, in any occupation, in any industry, because we're humans and we have weaknesses and flaws. And sometimes it's tough to take a back seat and say, hey, I'm going to serve the people around me. And I wish I've always done that well. I'm up and down sometimes with that, and I have to remind sometimes when I'm on stage or when I'm doing a podcast or, speaking to someone like you,
yes,
the things I'm saying are really just reminders to myself as well. Hey, I've got to do better. I've got to listen to what I'm saying.
I totally know what you mean. And like you were just talking about that power in every place, absolute power corrupts absolutely. The more people get, the more rope they, and then the people around them can tell. And it's not good all the time. But now
Holland, we look, and I was just thinking about this because I was talking to some students the other day, the movie 42 with Jackie Robinson.
Yes, Jackie Robinson.
A lot of people have seen that. Yeah. And there's that great scene that, a lot of people think is just Hollywood, but it actually happened where Jackie, everyone's hating on him because he's different. Yes. He doesn't look like anybody else. He's trying to do something no one's done before. And his home crowd boos him this one day when he makes an error at second base, throwing stuff on the field. And Pee Wee Reese, their beloved shortstop, everybody loves him. Everybody's All-American. He comes over and he puts his arm around Jackie and the booing stops. Yeah. And it's a powerful scene because it's somebody using their power, their status, their position to make something better of themselves. And how many times do we have power, or we're worried about how it's going to look on us, or, hey, I'm not going to be Mr. Popularity if I do this, or, I can't hang out with this guy, or I can't go to bat for this person or this group because how will that look for me? And I love that scene because it's somebody with power actually using their influence to make a change and to make someone else better, or to make someone else's day brighter, so to speak. And so I love that scene. And too often times as leaders, we're not doing those kinds of things.
That's true. And Pee Wee, he didn't care how it looked, but he just came out there to affect the mindset of his friend for making that error at second base, to quell the vitriol in the audience. And I totally with that. Now let's transition over. You are the author of 4 books. The Leadership Playbook, Building Champions, The Bus Trip, which is one of my favorites, and the new one, The Captain. Maybe go through each 4 of those, starting with the Leadership Playbook.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We wanted to write the first book, The Leadership Playbook, was kind of my philosophy of leadership. And it was, there's maybe 10 chapters. I forget, I should know this, but there's maybe 10 chapters, and each chapter is just full of stories. And then I tie a bow around those stories. So like the Jackie Robinson, the 42 story is in the book. There's stories about Jerry Rice, about Michael Jordan. There's even a story about the Marion Giants and their state championship run. There's a story about a baseball player from Marion. And so there's just different stories, famous or not famous, but I kind of give my insights on that. My second book was called Building Champions, Success Principles from A to Z. And it's A to Z principles. So A is attitude, B is belief, C is courage, and on down the line. So those first 2 were nonfiction. And then I jumped into the fictional realm. And so The Bus Trip, I appreciate you being a fan of that book, but The Bus Trip, it's about a team that's struggling, has challenges. They go on this bus trip, this bus ride one day, and a bunch of situations happen, a bunch of conversations happen, and the athletes come to realize that, we can do something to be better teammates. We can do something to be more positive leaders, and it's not the coach. It's not the coach's fault, or it's not the coach taking credit. We don't need the coach to do what we're supposed to do. We're going to come together. We know we need to be better teammates, and we can have a part in making this culture a little bit better. And then my 4th book that just came out, the most recent one, is also fictional, and it's called The Captain, and it's about a hot shot, fighter pilot who used to be a star quarterback. He's always been the man. He's always been in a position of leadership, but he's never really been a good leader. He's just always had status and talent, but never really been inspirational. And so, that's a book more so for people in positions of leadership. A coach would be great. A manager would be great. A supervisor to read that, but definitely, a senior upperclassman, a star, a captain on a sports team, it would also be very good for.
Okay. Yeah, I love, like I said, I love all four of them. The leadership playbook, the building champions, those 26 principles, really like it. And for the bus trip, I think high school kids and people could read that and find themselves in there. You know, I can read the bus trip and say, hey, I'm this character, I'm that character, I could do this. And like I said, the captain that has a high school feel, a military feel, it's really exciting. So I implore everybody to check all four of Mr. Bechler's books out. Better than they'll be major influences on anyone that reads them. So that's pretty awesome. Now let's go back a little bit. Now you were a college basketball coach for 20 some years. Can you talk about some of those days on the NAIA level and the NCAA level? Could you talk about some of those times coaching?
Yeah, pretty much all I ever wanted to do was coach. I wanted to be a basketball coach. Basketball was my love. It was my passion. And, I wanted to coach. I wanted to give back to the game. I had so many great coaches as Holland, you had coaches that probably impacted your life quite a bit when you were a Marion Giant. Yeah. And anytime you can have some kind of an impact ever so small in someone's life. And so I wanted to give back and I was fortunate to be able to coach at the college level for nearly 20 years. I was a head coach at 4 different schools.
Okay.
And it was fun because we got to travel a lot. Our family got to travel a lot. We got to have great experiences. Mm-hmm. We also got to meet some amazing people that we still keep in contact with, both coaches, but also players. Mm-hmm. The student athletes we got to deal with and work with. And so, my story is no different than any other coach. We were fortunate to be around a lot of great people. Yeah. And, the only thing I wish I could do differently was I wish I was perfect. I wish I didn't make so many mistakes. Yeah. Especially as a young coach, as a young coach, you make a lot of mistakes. Yes. And, but I learned each place I was at, I got better and better and kept learning and tried to be coachable. I was more coachable the second part of my career than I was early on. Early on, it's strange. As I got to learn more, I tried to be more coachable. Mm-hmm. When I was younger and didn't know anything. I didn't want people to know that I didn't know anything. I was trying to prove I belonged. I was a head coach at the NCAA level at the age of 27.
Mm-hmm. Starting off.
So I was a head coach at a pretty young age. And so I had a chip on my shoulder. I was trying to prove that I belonged. I was trying to prove that.
Your lumps, though. Had to take your lumps and learn along the way.
Yeah, and I made a lot of mistakes. And after 4 years of being a head coach, that first job, that school allowed me to go somewhere else. Yeah. I got resigned.
Yeah. What type of style did you run? Run and gun, half court, 4 corners, high low. What type of offense?
We ran a lot of up tempo, fast break. We called it the green light offense. Mm-hmm. The one thing that I was adamant about was that I wanted players to play with freedom. I wanted them to not be worried about, all right, am I going to take this shot? How's it going to look? Is this the right shot for me? Now I say all that and with, freedom, there's a lot of responsibility to that too.
Yeah.
And
within the flow of the offense. Yeah.
Yeah. And we were never known for our shooting percentages, and we were never known for our great shot selection, I will say, but the one thing we developed early on, and it continued throughout every stop I was at, was we were a very good rebounding team. All the teams that I coached were always very tough and great rebounders. Now, we weren't very good shooters, but we were great rebounders. And in fact, one year
that's effort.
It really is. And to me, I would love to have, the players that have great effort and are amazing talents. But I love the fact that we could take undersized post players, or I love the fact that we could take some kids that maybe were, got passed over or looked over, but but they had something in them. They had the it factor. They had that junkyard dog mentality or something. And, you know, the one year we set a national record, we out rebounded our opponents by nearly 20 rebounds a game. Amazing. I mean, we just killed everybody on the boards. And, but that helped, going back to the green light offense and players having freedom to shoot. Our players knew that they had each other's back. So if Holland shoots from the wing, he doesn't have to worry if he misses it, because if he misses it, it's just a pass to Jamy. Jamie's going to Jamie's going to go have his back, and it's just a pass off the rim, you know. And I'm not pouting. I'm not saying, oh, Holland's a ball hog. You know, two things happen when Holland shoots the ball. Either we make it and that's good for the team, or he misses it and there's four other people with a chance to go get that loose ball.
Yes.
So,
you know, I love that. I love that, Jamy, because being a great coach and kind of having your players fall in line, it has to do really with informing them, encouraging them, and reminding them. You know what I mean? Those are some of your axioms. Given accountability. You know what I mean? Knowing shooting in the flow. So, you know, nowadays it's reckless. Half court, shoot, AA ball, AAU ball, no defense. But like informing, encouraging, and holding account and the players accountable goes a long, long way. And even if you don't have success in the win or loss column, you still can breed a great you know, community within the team and teach lessons. And I just love what you do, man. I've been a fan of yours from day one. The day I saw you kind of get hired at Marion and kind of walk around, and I just saw how you did things in a professional. I mean, everything was, and I kind of watched you from afar. And so it's a culmination into this. And once again, it's an honor to have you on my podcast. But I appreciate that. Yes. So after leaving the high school, or leaving the college ranks, you became a high school AD. Let's touch in a little bit of that at the beginning, and then I want to go to your childhood. But what made you leave coaching and go into the athletic director realm?
Yeah, you know, I wasn't ready to leave coaching. I had a great team coming back. It was the best team in school history. We had worked pretty hard for the previous years to build, and we thought we had something special. And we were having everybody coming back off of this best team. We had built everything. And, but I knew long-term, I wanted to go into leadership and coaching is leadership, but I wanted to go into positional leadership, like administration. I wanted to be an AD. I really wanted to be a college AD, but we had this opportunity come to us. Brad Lindsay was the superintendent at Marion, and he reached out to me when they had an opening. We had a mutual friend, Chad Briscoe, who's the athletic director at Grace University or Grace College.
Yes,
they're in Indiana. Yeah, and so we had a mutual friend, and so Brad reached out to me, and you know, being a high school athletic director wasn't something that was on my radar, nor was leaving at that moment, because we had such a good team coming back, and I liked the team I had.
Yes,
but I thought that this was a good opportunity. Being a basketball guy. You know, being a basketball guy, it doesn't get much better than going to the Marion Giants. You know, the passion of the fans and the tradition, and I mean, it trickles down from the top of the top to the guy that's washing cars and on the back of the trash truck. It permeates through everybody. Well, and Brad Lindsay didn't have to sell me on Marion athletics. Like, I knew Marion. I grew up as a young kid reading Street and Smith magazines, you know, getting a magazine and seeing, all right, Jay Edwards is one of the top 10 players in the country or whatever, Lyndon Jones, James Black, you know, on down the line. I grew up reading these magazines, knowing where Marion was, knowing their tradition. And so he didn't have to sell me on that.
Yes.
And so I was really excited about it. And so we made the decision to take the job. We had to interview, obviously. And you know, Mr. Lennon Brown, I think he was the one that put the final stamp on it. I think he was the one we had to sell.
Yeah, and he turned us into an A school.
Great. Absolutely. And I loved the little bit of time. You know, he retired midway through my first year, but I loved the time getting to know him. Such a wise guy.
Yes.
Well, a wise guy in both ways. He's a
Yeah.
wise man and he's a wise guy.
Oh yeah.
But I learned a lot from him. And so, but it was a great experience.
Yes.
And, it was there was obviously some adjustment going to the high school level, but there were such good people there, and I couldn't even name them all because there's so many people that at Marion that helped me out from the day we moved in, to the day we moved out,
and we'll touch back on Marion in a little bit. I just wanted to touch on that briefly after leaving the coaching. But now, after leaving the AD thing, you work with top tier organizations and sports teams to maximize their potential in leadership, teamwork, and culture. Can you talk about that, about building businesses and, building their the way they do things?
Yeah, we kind of touched upon it earlier. Everybody has issues in leadership. Everybody's trying to be better. And so it really just comes down to, I think almost everything is about people. Now, granted, I haven't always been perfect in that area.
Yes.
But it is about the people. It's about treating people right, treating people with respect, and trying to inspire people. Even from a coaching standpoint, the coaches I deal with, the teams that I deal with, too oftentimes they're trying to solve problems with people by putting in a new play or putting in a new offense or, changing up the starting lineup, but they still got people issues because they haven't worked to establish a connection or a relationship with people.
Yes.
Some of the best coaches you'll see are the people that can inspire, that can not just motivate, but inspire people to run through a wall for them or to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do. And so that is really fun right now. What's that?
Coach James Bell, head coach of Marion football. Just an unbelievable man, a leader of men. Yeah. But I didn't want to cut you off.
It's so important, Holland, because, almost every coach knows some X's and O's and most plays will work. Most of that football playbook will work in the right situation. But if the kids aren't engaged, if the kids are bored, if they're not inspired, if they don't feel like they can trust the coach or they don't trust each other as players, especially in football. Football might be the best team sport out there.
11 guys.
They all have to work together.
Yep.
And I'm a basketball guy, but the reality is one stud basketball player can carry you quite a ways. Football, a stud player can't carry you all season long. No, it's just too much. There's 22 guys total on that field, that are starters. So absolutely. So you got to be able to inspire. And that's what we try to do when we're working with teams, when we're working with companies. I don't know how many times a manager or a supervisor will call us up or be like, hey, we want you to fix these guys. These people, they're coming in late, or we going through a lot of retention issues. And it's like, okay, we can try to fix them, but you got to be on board too. Yes. You're not inspiring them. They're not motivated to come to work. They don't want to be there. And we've even dealt with people that are like, well, I'm paying them a lot of money. They should love to work here. And it's like, that money, is nice every other Friday.
There has to, the atmosphere that you're there 60 hours a week has to be a good atmosphere for the soul. I've been through some jobs like that where I take a deep breath, put on a fake smile, walk through the door for 10 hours, And there's other ones that I wake up, can't wait to get there. So
it's important no matter what industry you're in. I mean, whether you're a superintendent at a school, principal at a school, or you're coaching the golf team or the cross country team, or you're a manager at a bank, it doesn't matter. You still have to inspire the people around you. And it can't be, I'm way up here, you're way down here. It can't be, well, I'm going to get all the good vacation and you guys are going to have to work every Saturday, or when your kids are on spring break, you're still going to have to work because I want spring break off. You got to think about your people and find ways to inspire them and make them want to be around you and want to be around each other.
I am totally 100% with you on that, man. It is such a culture change when people are encouraged and they buy in and they're held accountable for certain things in there, man. It means everything. All right. So we've got that initial thing off. Let's go back to the beginning. Now, who is Jamy Bechler? Where was he born? What did he do as a young youth and child? What were his influences? What was he play in high school? Pee Wee League, and how did you come to this point? But take us back to the beginning.
Yeah, I played all the sports growing up. And in fact, tennis was my very first sport I learned. That was the very first sport I learned. But I played pretty much all the sports, and I grew up in a time where computers pretty much weren't invented. TV, we had a black and white TV and we had 3 stations. If we could get the antenna just right, we would pick up the 3 stations. My parents were awesome. My mom was an educator. She taught elementary school forever. And my dad did a lot of things. My dad was a real interesting guy. He was a fireman. He was a politician. He was a sheriff officer. Eventually he worked as a maintenance man at a college. He could fix anything. He built our house from scratch. He built customized lawn and garden tractors.
Awesome.
He was
rich influence.
Yeah. He wasn't educated, but he was very smart.
Yes.
He was the smartest guy I knew. And he went back in his 60s and got his associate's degree at a junior college, just because he felt like that was something he wanted to do. And so, I learned hard work. I know it's cliche, but I learned that value of hard work early on, of rolling up your sleeves and getting into it. And so, it was one of those, if my parents, and we lived outside of town, so we lived about 10 miles away from the school. And so, I would ride my bike. If my parents weren't available to drive me, I would ride my bike to school or ride my bike to practice, and I know that seems like it's a long ways to ride your bike, but you know what? We did what we had to do.
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah. And so played lots of sports growing up, tried to be pretty good in all the sports, went to college, played a couple different sports in college. It was very fun. I had a lot of experience. I was involved in student government a lot, like quiz bowl type stuff, honor, academic honor type stuff,
FCA, things like that.
FCA. Yeah. So we tried to do everything, tried to do as much as possible. Now in high school, I think some of that stuff, we just did it so that we would have more things listed next to our picture in the yearbook. In college, I just did a lot because I wanted to be involved in a lot of things. And
let's talk about that. What was were you recruited to college for any sports, and what was your ultimate decision to where you went? And did you have any recruiting or anything like that?
Yeah, I was recruited to play college basketball, and I thought I was a better recruit than I was. I thought, let's put it this way, my college coach did a great job recruiting me. I thought that I was one of his top recruits, and I arrived on campus and there were 21 other recruited athletes. There was a total of 22 of us.
Yes.
And he actually cut 11 of them. So there was 11 of us that made the team that first year. But I was fortunate enough I walked on the football team. So I went to Hiram College, a small college in Ohio. I grew up in Michigan. I went to Ohio to play college basketball, and I got there and I saw these signs saying, hey, we need football players. We've had a bunch of injuries, sickness. The football team needs more people. And so I went and walked on the football team. So I played both sports my freshman year. And then my sophomore year, I really could only do one. I wasn't good enough to play both at the college level. And so even though basketball was my passion, I was actually a little bit better at football. I was a wide receiver. I was a wide receiver. I would be what's known as a possession receiver. In other words, I wasn't very fast.
But you had sure hands and could get to 6-7 yard catches there.
I was tough. I had great hands, and I wasn't slow, but I wasn't college fast. I wasn't that fast for college. So a lot of slants, a lot of those 10-yard dig type things or curls. But it was fun. It was great. And then I hurt my knee my sophomore year, and I decided I was going to give up football because I didn't want to risk that. I didn't like that knee injury.
Yes.
I thought I was tough, but I didn't want to have to go through a knee injury again. That just
Yeah.
wasn't fun.
Okay.
So I ended up playing running track my last 2 years. So
Okay.
I still did sports at the college level. So that was fun. It was a good opportunity for me, and I got to throw some javelin. Got to be on a couple different relay teams, and got to meet a lot of cool people that I'm still friends with today.
Yes. Now is awesome too. Now I looked at your bio a little bit, and it talked about Dalmatians. Is there a love for them? Did you raise them growing up? Things like that.
Yeah, we
I have
raised
to
them.
love all dogs, and I
We
love Dalmatians with the spots and everything.
Yeah, Dalmatians. Those were the dogs we raised as a
Mhm.
family. I would say we probably had, I don't even know how many litters we had through the years, but we
Mhm.
probably had 7 to 10 adult dogs that we owned, adult
Mhm.
Dalmatians through the years. But we bred them and we
Mhm.
sold them. And but my dad owned, at one point, my dad owned 8 antique fire trucks. You
Okay.
know, some people own antique cars,
So
or,
full
you know,
size.
yeah,
Full
full
size.
size, real,
Yes.
not matchbox, not miniatures,
Yeah.
full size operating fire trucks.
Wow.
He was a fireman for 30 years, loved
Mhm.
fire stuff, and he would take these to parades, you know, the 4th of July parade, any parade that was going on in the area, we would
Yes.
take them, and we were a big hit because we had Dalmatians.
Mhm.
So
I have total respect for firemen. To be the ones running in while everyone's running out. I mean, takes a special kind of man to do that. I'm friends with a couple firemen, Mr. Smith and Mr. Neal here in town, and
yep.
I just tell them how much I respect them each time. So, like I said, they're running in when everyone's running out. It takes a special man, and he maybe talk to some of those stories that may have happened when you were a child, growing up, seeing your dad go out and you come back in.
Yeah, my dad was, for 30 years, he was a fire captain. He was a
Mhm.
captain, and but it was a volunteer firefighting, a fire station.
Mhm.
It wasn't too far away. I mean, it was maybe a quarter mile away from our house, so it was
Mhm.
easy to get to. The fire station was, but at all hours of the night, the phone might ring, the emergency phone might ring, the siren might go off, and he's gone. He's got
Gotta
to go
go.
help somebody, and yeah, and there were times that he would bring me along with him.
Mhm.
And I would go along with him and ride in the fire truck, or we'd go.
Yes.
I didn't fight the fires myself
Mhm.
when I was a kid, but
But you
I
would
would sit in
see.
the truck and watch. And
Mhm.
yeah, whether it was, a car accident, or whether it was an actual fire, you
Mhm.
know, that my parents always were very caring. My mom
Yes.
worked on the ambulance. She would go out on ambulance runs and stuff, and they just taught me, not only hard work, but taught me to value human life. And
Yes.
now I'd like to say that I don't get queasy at blood, or I'm a tough guy like that, but
Mhm.
I don't like to see a car accident. I don't like to see that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
even though I grew up around it. I don't like to see that kind of
Yeah.
stuff still.
Yeah. It's my great grandfather drove a wrecker. I'm from New Jersey. He drove a wrecker for the Jersey Turnpike, and he'd always be bringing wrecked cars back to his property, and he would have some stories in there. But yeah, I wouldn't want to see any of that stuff anymore. All right, well that is pretty great right there. So let's talk about John Wooden now, and maybe an influence on that he's had on you as far as his principles and coaching and his demeanor and the way he instructed people in an effective way. Can you talk about John Wooden a little bit?
Yeah, well, obviously, growing up in Indiana, or he grew up in Indiana, and if you're a basketball guy, you know John Wooden.
Yes,
And
Purdue, all that.
growing up, I grew up in Michigan, like I said, and I was in 7th grade, and my English teacher had this little library in the corner of her classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And one day she gave me the book, They Call Me Coach, by John Wooden.
Mm-hmm.
And I read that book, and that was the first time, not that I wanted to be a coach right
Mm-hmm.
at that moment, but it was the first time that I kind of saw a coach who loved on all of his players, even if they weren't playing.
Yes.
And I wasn't mature enough as a seventh grader to say, hey, I want to be that kind of coach one day.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, hey, I want to coach like this. If I'm missing shots or making turnovers,
Mm-hmm.
I want a coach that still loves on me.
Yes.
And so that was the first kind of realization that there's other coaches out there. Like I had good coaches,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of my coaches were the stereotypical, if things are going well, then they're treating you well. Yeah. And if things aren't going well, then, you know, they're yelling and screaming at you.
Yeah.
And to a degree, I think that can build, or back then it could build a lot of character. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that was about the only way we knew.
But coaching styles change, you know.
It has, and you got to evolve and you got to adapt to the people that you're around and leading.
Yes.
But I saw John Wooden's style and I was like, man, I want to coach like that. And then as I got older and older, I realized that, you know what, maybe I can be like that. Now, I obviously was never John Wooden. He's at another level, but I always tried to do as much as possible like John Wooden within my capabilities. But I did a senior research project on him. I got to talk to him a couple times during my career. Once in college, he called my dorm room. I sent him a letter, and about a month later, he called my dorm room to talk about basketball.
Special.
Yeah. You know, you would almost think if it was a younger coach, you would almost think it was a prank, you know, from one of your buddies or something. But you know, he definitely sounded old.
You know?
Yeah, he definitely sounded old. So I'm like, I know this isn't my grandpa pranking me or something.
UCLA, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I mean, you know.
Yeah. And then years later, I'm coaching at Anderson University. I'm an assistant men's coach. It's early on in my career, but we went out to LA during Christmas and we're practicing at UCLA. And we had two guests that day that were practicing at UCLA. John Wooden came in and watched our whole practice and talked to us. And we also had a guy named Michael Clark Duncan from the movie Armageddon and the movie Green Mile.
He played the King.
He practiced with us. So I'm putting him through drills. It was awesome having him at practice as well. But our head coach at the time at Anderson University had coached Michael Clark Duncan. Had coached him in college. And so he came out. So that was pretty cool. So John Wooden, amazing. And then a couple of years ago, I went down and spoke at his high school, Martinsville High School. So that was kind of a thrill to get to coach, or to get to speak to all their student athletes down there, and get pictures next to the statue and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. When I go down to IU Bloomington, that's usually the halfway point. It's like an hour and a half to Martinsville and then an hour and a half on into Bloomington. But they opened it up the highway now. It's a little bit easier. But Martinsville was always my cutoff going to IU. All right. Let's move on a little bit. Now let's get into, like you talked about Dr. Lindsay and Dr. Brown finding you, but let's talk about coming to Marion, like we talked about before, the fifth largest gym in the country, the great tradition. I think that was what James Blackman was the coach there. Ryan Vermillion was the football coach at the time. Didn't win a lot, so coach, there was a change from Vermillion into Chambers. He maybe talk about finding Marion, seeing the basketball team initially with, I think, young James Blackman Jr. was there with his dad, and some of that transition into Marion and the community.
Yeah, well, the transition was great. I mentioned earlier, so many people. I could give you this long laundry list of the great people I met, but I'd leave out some people. But so many great people, and the athletics were good. I mean, we had a lot of good teams. We had a lot of good coaches. We had some established coaches. We had some younger coaches. But Coach Blackman. We were fortunate enough. The Giants won the 8th state title. There in 2016. Yeah, very, very exciting. And the thing is, if my memory serves me correctly, we trailed. There were 7 games in the state playoffs, and we trailed in 5 of them in the second half. So they were almost like the cardiac kids.
Well, you remember at semi-state, the Griffith kids had a bus wreck, And then it was crazy. They were saying after those kids didn't have a bus wreck and Age didn't tip it in at the buzzard, and we wouldn't have done it. But history had it that's what happened.
It was a magical run, crazy season.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to get the sectional.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first year that we were 3A.
Yeah.
And we fought, we greased the skids and primed the pump months in advance of when we were having that discussion about sectional. And we were able to persuade everybody else to give us sectionals.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really important because we had some close games in sectionals.
Yes.
And thankfully we were at home for those games.
Mm-hmm.
And, like you said, Griffith having the bus accident, that was everyone was rooting against us pretty much. Everybody, the media darlings with Griffin, and I can understand why, to this day, I will not understand how anybody wasn't seriously hurt or even killed in that bus accident.
Kids, they were banged up and some had stitches, and the ones that played were just, they put up a great effort against us to come up. What the hell?
Amazing that it wasn't worse, but once it became apparent that a lot of their kids were okay, mm-hmm. and they could play, mm-hmm. then we had to do what we could to support and advocate for Marion. Yes. And, we were kind of the forgotten people in that. Now, obviously it was a tragic event and it could have been a lot worse, but it wasn't worse.
It wasn't.
And Marion was forgotten a lot of, it was all about the Griffin kids. And mm-hmm. like I said, it was a tragedy, but we also had kids too that were fighting for a championship, and
we had a game to play, and we were fighting for a championship,
Yeah. And so we were trying to make it fair for everybody, but not make it unfair for us.
For us, yes.
And so, but it was a great experience for those guys, and they fought mm-hmm. really hard, and we were down even in that championship game. And Coach Blackman is a master motivator. Mm-hmm. And he kept those guys focused every single game, even when they were down. So that was exciting. We were able to hire Coach Chamberlain, and Coach Chambers in football. Mm-hmm. And he came in and did an amazing job of inspiring. We talked about inspiring earlier. Yes. He came in and
he brought that culture back. He brought that culture back,
There's no question that he cared about players, and
yes.
he invested, he owned, he took ownership in
He's a good man.
Each one of those kids. Yeah. And got them rolling. And Coach Bell has been able to pick up where we left off with Coach Chambers. But being able to go through that process, and it was important for us as a school, as a community. We mm-hmm. wanted to make sure that we brought in the right person.
Yes.
And, Keith Burke was instrumental in that.
Yes.
As principal.
Yep. Shout out to Mr. Burke and Mr. Lindsay and those guys there,
Brad Lindsay gave us the freedom, to go out and, go out and find the right person, mm-hmm. go out and hire the right person.
And he had just won a semi-state at Howe.
Yeah. And what he had done at Howe was very similar to the Howe situation, very similar to the Marion situation.
Yes.
And so it was important for us to bring in somebody that kind of fit, that had success at a place like Marion, or doing things like
similar athletes.
Yeah, where we wanted to go, but also with the same type of kids, maybe the mm-hmm. same type of social economic background.
It was
there was a lot of similarities there. And so he was a no-brainer, mm-hmm. That if, he wanted to come, mm-hmm. it looked like it would be a good fit, but we interviewed some good people. We looked at some good people, but, the board, Mr. Lindsay, they all, gave Coach Burke Mr. Burke and I freedom to go out and find the right coach. And but Mr. Burke was great in that role as principal of helping find Coach Chambers.
Yes. I remember that the initial introduction, I think it was halftime at the basketball game, and he had a nice gray suit on with the red shirt, if I can't remember. But I remember seeing you guys. I can remember in my mind seeing you guys stand there. I think as you were he was being introduced, and I said, you know what? I need to make sure. I didn't know I was on Vermillion staff, but I didn't know. I know he was bringing a whole staff. I didn't know if I could be retained on. So I wanted to talk to him that night. And then after he met with the kids in one of the locker rooms, I came up to him and said, I'd like to be a part of your staff. And he welcomed me right away. And to this day, we're good friends. They helped my son out a lot.
And there's always there's no guarantee you're going to get it right. There's rarely a perfect search process at any level. But when you make a change, especially when you make a change with somebody that has been in the community for as long as Coach Vermillion had and has ties and so many people like him, when you make a change like that, you really do need to get it right.
Right.
And so, everybody on that search committee, I thought took it very seriously. And it wasn't just a rubber stamping. It wasn't just, hey, this is the guy that we think we want. We're just going to give it to him because of X, Y, and Z. No, there was a process, and everybody on that committee took it seriously because number one, it's football. You got to take football very seriously in any town because it pays the bills. Football and basketball bring in the revenue. So you got to take it seriously from that standpoint, but you do have to take it seriously when you make a change of somebody that's a community member, of somebody that has given their life to that sport. You don't want to just flippantly just hire anybody. You want to make sure that you get it right. And I thought that everybody did a great job of getting it right.
Yeah. And he took a little bit of flack, bringing a couple of players to kick off the program. You'd hear things in the background. All these coaches bringing these kids, which in hindsight, if you look at it, it was really only 2 or 3 kids. The rest of them, a lot of them didn't even play. But you hear you heard the rumblings and buzzings. And we did go to, he did kickstart the program. We went to semi-state in 2018. And in 2019, we lost to Miss Senegal in the sectional finals. But the results were a byproduct of the process. Yes.
And when we were going through the process of hiring Coach Chambers, obviously we wanted results. You don't hire a coach like Coach Chambers to come in and lose, a lot of games. You're hoping that he wins games, but we knew the reason he was going to win games was because he was going to be invested in the kids, and he was going to have that Pied Piper or that it factor, that X factor, that magic touch. We weren't hiring. You never hire a coach who's dumb at X's and O's. Okay. But we weren't hiring him because, all right, he was this mad scientist, had, the biggest playbook in the world. No, anyone has a playbook.
Of children of men.
No, every coach in America has a playbook, and every coach knows their plays. The key is, do the players know those plays? Do the players know how to play? Do the players want to play? And not every coach can get that. And that's the byproduct of, all right, well, what offense and defense you're going to run? Yeah. Okay. That does matter to a degree, but we hired Coach Chambers, or Coach Chambers became the no-brainer because he was going to invest in these kids. And we felt that Marion community were going to be better off one day. And so I think the winning was a byproduct. It was just an eventual that was going to happen because he was investing in the kids like that.
One of my great friends to this day, and I will always hold him in high regard. Let's touch back on the state championship title day. Just want to clarify, there were some rumblings about the seeding as far as season ticket holders. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking. I don't know what the rumblings are, but I don't know what all the rumblings are, but I definitely know the story. I know what happened because I was the leader. I was the athletic director. And so the buck stops with me. I was the leader of the athletic department, and we made an error with the tickets for the championship game. Now there's a lot of reasons why. And that was a really difficult situation for me as the leader, especially somebody that hadn't gone through that before with the IHSAA, with the state finals, with everybody wanting tickets. And what people don't remember is we won on a Wednesday night. We got back to Marion. We got the tickets right after the victory Wednesday night in semi-state. By the time we got back to Marion with the tickets, it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. At 7 the next day. So we had about 6 hours to turn it around and get completely ready for these thousands of people that wanted tickets, plus all the complimentary tickets. So that didn't go as smoothly. I thought it went well for the 6 hour turnaround. I don't think it went well from a bigger standpoint. And there were some errors that I made. Ultimately I dropped the ball on some areas. And, probably the biggest issue was that a lot of our students ended up in the upper deck. And that's one of those things that, if I could go back in the DeLorean, from Back to the Future, if I had the Wayback Machine, that's one of the biggest mess ups in my professional career. Our students were awesome. We had great students, and I hated that they couldn't be down where they needed to be. And we just dropped the ball on that. And, so I don't know if that's what you're alluding to. And if it's not, then I just told on myself, but
it was,
we screwed up, but when it comes to leadership, number one, nobody's perfect, but number two,
take accountability for that.
It doesn't matter whose fault it was, and it doesn't matter what the reasons were. At the end of the day, I'm 100% responsible because I'm the athletic director. And so, if there's somebody or lots of people that are unhappy, then I need to bite my tongue. And you know what? That's the way it is. And to this day, I don't like that happened. Now, I think we made the best of it. And there was a lot of things we were doing behind the scenes to rectify it. That most people didn't see.
Winning helped.
Well, winning did help, but there was a number of solutions that we presented in about the 24-hour span when we realized we made a mistake, and a lot of those got shot down, and we weren't able to do those things. But you know what?
The past, water under the bridge. We still won 8.
The biggest thing I would probably say a lesson, probably the biggest lesson from that, from a leadership standpoint, is I really needed to do a better job of, I was so focused on just trying to get the tickets available, get things set up, and just be ready for like 7 o'clock or when the doors opened. I really needed to take a step back, and I probably should have said, you know what, we're not opening the doors at this time. We're gonna have a 2-hour break or whatever, because we had to have the money to the IHSAA that next morning. So we had to do it all on that Thursday, but our game was that Wednesday night, where everybody else had the game Saturday night. So everybody else
everything was
got
sped
their
up.
games done Saturday, and that's how it normally is. But because of that bus accident, we got postponed to Wednesday. I did not prepare as well as I should have. And we didn't double check. We didn't triple check. We should have dotted more I's and crossed more T's to make sure that everything was right, and should have got extra set of eyes on everything.
Well, in hindsight, we know that what we did, we know we'll understand if that were to happen again. We know we do some things just a hair differently, But
I would hope so. I would hope that, if Marion's fortunate, or any school or anybody listening to this is fortunate to be in a situation like that that they take a step back just a little bit. Abraham Lincoln says, if I had 6 hours to chop down a tree or cut down a tree, I'd spend the first 4 hours, sharpening my blade, sharpening my saw, preparing.
Yes.
And I was just in such knee-jerk reaction mode. Everything leading up to that Wednesday was about just getting the game off, trying to work with Griffin, trying to work with the IHSA, trying to get Coach Blackman and that giant squad everything that they needed to be ready. The tickets were a secondary thing, and they shouldn't have been, but that's just the way it was. And we needed to do a little bit better job on that area.
That's fair.
So thanks for bringing that. Thanks for bringing that up, Holland.
I mean, there was some rumblings. Now, just one more thing on that. Did you think that situation, did that expedite you leaving Marion? Was that maybe an issue, a small issue that kind of precipitated you leaving Marion?
I was leaving. I wanted to do what I'm doing right now. The only question was going to be when that was going to be.
When?
Yeah. It wasn't a matter. There was never, I don't think there was ever anybody that felt like I was going to retire a Marion Giant as much as I mean, while I was there, those 2 years, I gave my heart and soul.
Oh man, perfect.
Worked tirelessly, and we tried to bring some pride back to Marion in certain areas, and we tried to clean up some areas that needed cleaned up, and we tried to maintain the areas that were already good. And so we worked tirelessly to do that. All the coaching staff, the administration, and the people that worked in our office, Robin Edwards, our secretary, and Todd Chin, my assistant. I mean, Todd was my right-hand man. I mean, he was amazing. He did so much. But anyways, I don't think that there was anybody that thought I was going to retire
there.
I was going to be 70 years old and still be
being there.
60, yeah. So it's just a matter of when that was going to happen. And I had an opportunity going in the John Maxwell training. I had a couple opportunities to take a job in Atlanta, a leadership job, a consulting job in Atlanta. That opportunity came around at that same time. So, everything kind of lined up that way. I honestly can say, I don't think that even if everything went perfect on that day or surrounding the state championship, I don't think the result would have been different for me.
Yes. Still would have ended up leaving.
Yeah, because there was opportunities there. There was other opportunities to go into the leadership space and to go into consulting, which ultimately led to me being able to own my own business.
Yes. All right. And you were great as an AD, in my opinion. And there was a little movement after you left. I think Chin was there, Hanley was there, Mozart Barnes was there, and now Steve Morris has had it, which he has a great energy and effort for Marion sports. Definitely give a shout out to Steve and give a shout out to
Steve. Steve is he was one of the first people when I got the job. He interviewed me for the radio station, and it was obvious that he had a huge passion for Marion.
I'm actually a fan of Steve. I'm a fan of Steve.
Yeah. So, Marion's in good hands, and they went through a couple ADs. They've gone through a number of ADs through the years, and there's the turnover is for various reasons.
Yes.
But Steve Moritz is somebody that was there back in the heyday.
Yeah,
he was somebody that, he's somebody that has a passion for Marion. And so, I think
it shows.
Anytime you can get somebody in a leadership position like that has a passion, he's not just buying in to the Marion way. He's not just buying in, because he has to. He's invested in the process. He's taking ownership in it. And if Marion does well, he feels good about it. If Marion doesn't do well, he feels like he's let him down. When you have that kind of a passion, and that's what you want. And so, anytime you can get someone like him sitting in that chair, making those decisions, being your representative, I think that, that only leads to good things, that kind of passion.
Very important. To shout out to Chip Bryant and shout out to Jim Brunner, Greg Keaton, all those guys that keep Marion athletics flowing and out to the people. Channel 27 News and Entertainment. Got to give a shout out to those guys, Rashard as well. There's a lot going on in Marion to keep the sports. The sports is what binds this community together, all 5 schools in the county. And, we gripe at each other, but at the end of the day, we still kind of keep an eye at what's going on in Miss Centerwall, what's going on at Oak Hill. We kind of always, what's going on at Marion? We all kind of look at each other. So now let's talk about, after you've left Marion, you're doing what you're doing now, and you've written your book and things. Let's talk about your family. Let's talk about your wife, children, things of that nature.
Yeah, well, Jalen, our son Jalen, he's 12.
Mm-hmm.
He's in middle school now. We live in Akron, Ohio.
Okay.
And
LeBron James.
That's right.
Have you seen him?
Of LeBron James.
Have you seen him riding his bike or anything?
No, but he does a lot for the community, and so it's he's got the school there in Akron, and he just does so many things in the community. But we've it's been fun where we live. My wife's all of her family lives in this area, and so and we've gotten involved in the Booster Club. We've gotten involved in the school that we're at, this community. They've put in a new turf field, and I was on that committee. They asked me to serve on that committee for the turf.
Were you on the one that brought it to Marion too, weren't you?
Well, I was AD when it opened.
Okay.
But I was not on the planning. I was not part of the planning, but I was. They were putting in the finishing touches on it when I took over.
Okay. So that one in Ohio as well.
Yeah, so that was we've put that in, and it's been great for the community, just like the one in Marion. Football coach doesn't have to worry about the band, or worried about soccer, or worried about gym class messing up the field when it rains or anything like that. I mean, everybody can coexist together because you're not messing up the field. That turf is so nice.
It is. And what are your thoughts of the last 2 years as far as coronavirus, quarantines, now it's jabs and boosters and masks? How has it affected what you do these last 2 years?
Yeah, from a business standpoint, it certainly affected us, just like it's affected everybody.
Yes.
The bulk of my business, my income is from schools, from sports teams, from schools. And when schools are shut down or sports teams aren't playing or budgets are frozen, that affects me. But I mean, the last 2 years has affected everybody. So, I can sit here and say, well, our income, wasn't as much as it was, or I didn't travel as much, but that's the same as everybody. Everybody pretty much was in the same boat. The only regret, or the only thing that my main frustration from the last 2 years is that we didn't have a lot of dialogue. We didn't have a lot of civil discussions about stuff.
Yes.
And I come at it from, I deal primarily, just like you are, and most of the people watching this, you deal with kids, you work with kids. Well, I always struggle when we paint with a broad brush or we go black and white. Like it's just, there's no shade of gray, or there's no nuance. And as well as I do, and a lot of other people watching this, there are some kids out there in schools that without football, without basketball, without sports, they're not going to be making good decisions.
Nope.
They don't have that's the thing.
Structure, discipline, accountability.
Yeah, that's the thing that, one, keeps them maybe from getting in trouble. 2, it helps them learn some life skills. But 3, it might be the only thing that keeps them eligible, that keeps them even motivated to go to class. Well, when you take sports away, and I'm not saying we should have had sports in every situation, but when there's no discussion, that hurt me. That was a frustration to me, because I saw how many kids it was affecting, how many kids really had no hope and no purpose really for their life. Because now you shouldn't put every hope in sports. That shouldn't be your total identity. But the reality is, for a lot of kids, it is their identity. And if you take that away without any discussion, I think that was tough. Not to say that you shouldn't have had shutdowns, not to say that sports season shouldn't have been canceled, but I just thought that we flippantly did some of those things and made those decisions without actually talking about some of the secondary effects,
Yes.
and do the pros and cons line up, if you make this kind of chart, so.
I totally agree.
But, it's really tough from a leadership standpoint the last couple of years because, lots of opinions changed, lots of science or so-called science changed at different points.
Fauci and I'm
lots of things
guy.
like that. Lots of things you weren't allowed to discuss. Now you can discuss, or vice versa. And to me, that's not civil. That's not healthy communication.
There's just cancel culture. There's LGBT. You gotta watch what you say anymore. Even more.
Jamy can't convince Holland of something if we're not even discussing it. If I just tell you you're an idiot, or say you got to believe this because of this, and you don't get a say, or you don't even get to, we don't even get to talk about it. Well, you're not going to come over to my side, or you're not going to be persuaded. The only time you persuade somebody is if you can understand them, if you can meet someone there, if you can have a relationship with someone. And when we're demeaning people, or we're just putting our heels in the ground, in the sand, and not entertaining other options, or that there's alternative perspectives out there, then it's really tough to convince somebody else that you're right.
That's true.
And I think we had a lot of people trying to be right as opposed to do what's right. And I'm not even saying one way or another. I'm not even saying that I agree with this side or this side. I'm just saying we didn't have those discussions, and I think that's poor leadership. And
yes,
I would say even from a coaching standpoint,
leadership is weak. We have this war to Ukraine now. This is the beginning of something that could be catastrophic, that is going to change the globe. If there's a nuke fired, if there's something that precipitates our response, it's going to blow up the whole can a bit, and it's kind of scary a little bit,
I will say I don't know enough about it to offer much of an opinion. And I don't think we should have opinions on everything in the world, because we're not informed about everything. But the one thing I would say about stuff like this is that the Russians, the Ukrainians, anyone else, it could be Canadians. It could be people in Indiana versus people in Texas. We think differently than other people. Not everybody thinks the same as we do. And so just because we would do something doesn't mean that's the culture in the Middle East, doesn't mean it's the culture in Asia, in Europe, doesn't mean that's how other people think also. And so we've got to be careful of going in with solutions before we understand situations.
The totality,
and that's about everything. And I know there's a comment the other day from the president, the Ukrainian president, about I don't need a ride.
I need ammunition.
I need bullets. I need ammunition. I need guns. I'm not arguing that statement or anything like that. But the point I want to make with the statement is, we do that kind of stuff all the time. We as people, not we as political parties, but we as people. We assume that we know the solution to the problem. Like our solution is, well, let's get that president out of there. Well, we don't understand his situation. He doesn't need a ride. And that's like when my wife has a problem, when my wife has a problem at work, I'm quick to offer a solution. Oh, I know how to solve that.
But I'm not there.
And maybe she's not wanting a solution. Maybe she just wants me to listen. Maybe she just wants me to understand. But we're so quick to have a solution. We're so quick to have bumper sticker solutions, to complex problems.
We have to wrap it up a little bit. I know we have other things to do, but I just wanted to wrap it up. We didn't get a chance to talk about Bitcoin and crypto and Dogecoin and stocks. I love all that stuff, real estate. But I would love to have you on again, possibly. I think it's been a great talk. Maybe we could talk about some other topics as far as leadership and education and schooling. But I just wanted to thank you, Jamy Bechler, former AD at Marion and author and leadership teacher, for coming on my show to talk with me about the past, the future, and things of that nature. I want to thank you again for coming on. It's been an honor, Jamy.
Hey, I appreciate it, Holland. Thanks for all you're doing. And I appreciate, I know you served us as when I was an AD there, you served as a coach, and
Yep,
every single coach, it didn't matter what sport. I mean, I thought a lot of each of you, because it's not like you're getting rich.
No,
it's not like you're getting famous. Yeah, absolutely. You were doing it because you either love kids or love Marion Giants or both.
I'm mad at the ones that I can't save. I'm mad at the kid that gets out of hand and I read in the paper, he's locked up now. That's what hurts me. So, but I want to
thank you for what you do. I appreciate you having me on, Holland.
Hey, thanks, Jamy. God bless you.